grief when you come.
Okay. You can give me a sobriety test later. He said I was walking funny coming up here. I don't listen to Tom anymore anyway. It don't matter. What? I'm sorry. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Michael. Oh, it's good to finally be here. I'm all over the map tonight, so whatever you hear is what you're going to hear, and I'll tell you how my week went, and then maybe we can slip back in time. On Sunday, I went to a visitation for a really good friend of mine who was going to Central Prison with me every Monday or every other Monday, however it worked out, along with someone else. And that's on Mondays, and then we have a crew that goes Wednesday. But he faithfully for years has been my guy, and I'm probably the longest person going there, and that's Tom's fault, because I don't know why he thought after I got out of jail, he thought I wanted to go back there for some reason. I don't know what the heck that means, but I'm still 17 years later, I'm still going back there. So normally when we show up and there's only two of us, they make one person go to the second floor and one go to the third. And they always do that. There's no exception. And this night, they said, both of you go upstairs to the third floor. So we did that, and we had a meeting, and I had something to say at the meeting because I have a big mouth. And Bob is his name. He had something to say. He was the last speaker there. And that's the last time I saw Bob, because a couple days later he was killed on a motorcycle accident. So Sunday, I never seen the universe of alcoholics from Wake County and everywhere else descend upon this church. I don't know where I parked. I was just hoping after 2 hours of waiting to say something to his daughter and wife and whatever, that my car would still be there and not towed. I didn't know that for sure. But everybody in humanity seemed like they were at that. It was a pretty good sized place too. And so we did all that. And he was buried Monday being September 15th. And Monday, I went to a meeting and received a 31-year chip because it was my birthday. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday. So I've had this roller coaster week with that. And in fact, I went to the dentist before I came here, where the fellow that died, it's funny, but it's also serious, the fellow that died, that's where his daughter works. But fortunately, she took the week out. She wasn't there. So I had to deal with the folks from where she worked who were all totally depressed, of course, because they all went to the service. Just an excellent company. They just shut down to go support their patient, who was also Bob, and his daughter, who was a staff member there. So it's an interesting week, and I think that's called life. I just hear that kicked around from time to time, and that's the way it goes. And usually it's not so. It's more like a wild mouse ride, but this week it's been like the cyclone kind of deal. And so I decided there that I was going to risk telling you a joke. And if you heard it, I'm sorry. If you hate it, please don't throw anything at me. But I thought it was funny, and I didn't start it, so someone else said it. So there's a guy from Atlanta that comes to our meeting in Cary, and he said, these two guys in AA were talking, and one guy was getting sober, and the other guy was the sponsor, and he said, I had this big problem because I really need to make amends to this person, but they died. What should I do? So the sponsor said, all right, well, what usually we do a lot of times with that, if he's in a cemetery nearby, you write a letter and you respectfully go out there. You can bring flowers, do whatever you want. You go out there and you make your amends sincerely like the person is alive. So the person went out and did that apparently, and about a week later, the sponsor and the person ran into each other at a meeting. So the sponsor remembered that, and he said, oh, by the way, how'd that go with making that amends? And the guy said, it went fantastic. He said, it went so well, I was thinking about all the other people on my 8-step list. I was going to let them die too before I go make amends. So I really liked the way that worked out. So I thought that was funny as I could be, even though it's kind of morbid when I heard it, but that's just my personality. like I said, I'm all over the place. I'm from New York. I was born in 1952, so I've had the privilege to be alive twice as long as I should have been, from my calculation, because I was just as bad a drunk as anybody I've met. And when I first came to AA, I didn't think I drank enough. And that's why people should come to AA and stay, because you cannot gauge how bad a drunk you are in the first little while. Because I had people that were bad drunks, they would ask me questions like a year into the program or 2 years in the program, and I would answer in such a way, they would look at me and go, "You're bad, man, just stay away from us." That's sober people saying that. Apparently, because I was impressed when I first came to speaker meetings, that's one of the things that helped me get sober. In fact, there was a person here, right back there, wears suspenders, still, that spoke, and he probably doesn't remember, at a meeting in Smithfield, North Carolina. And I was coming to meetings, but I was kind of like, it was fine that you all believed all this spiritual stuff and everything you read and do. I didn't really buy that stuff. But I listened to his story, and when I left, I had a different attitude about it. And I had to admit, there had to be something about this AA. If this power that you talked about could take that guy and turn him into the guy I was hearing. And I believed everything that he said that night. And that's what happened to me. I decided to start believing everything you said. Now, I went too far maybe, because I have since learned that sometimes we all say stuff that is not true. The guy said he was recording me, so I was sitting down. I was trying to figure out, I like statistics and math, so I was trying to figure out what percentage more lies would I tell as a result of knowing that machine was on. I figured about 10%. I'd exaggerate and lie a little, about just upwards of 5 to 10%, even when I'm trying not to. But I'm glad I didn't see it till just now, so I'll try to ignore that. So anyway, so I grew up in New York City. Tom mentioned that, and with my mom basically, because by the time I came at the age of 4 or 5, my dad was gone, and that's a long story all in itself. And then I had a younger sister. She's still around. She lives in Maine. She doesn't care anything about capitalism, society, doesn't like people too much. She just hangs out in the rural area of Maine, and but we get along good now, despite the fact that we were at lunch actually talking about the WWE, the wrestling thing. And sometimes as a recovering alcoholic, I'm with people who don't drink, and I probably say too much, about stuff I used to do. So this woman we were trying to get as a client was talking about how her son loves the WWE, which wasn't called that back then. It was called something else. And I said, "Oh yeah, when my sister and I grew up, we used to watch that and love that." And then I would try out all those holds on her, in the living room, until she started screaming, "Mom, he's killing me," stuff like that. So in hindsight, I'm like, was that really a good idea to tell her all that? I don't know. She seemed like she thought that was funny, but you don't always know. Anyway, so I grew up in this little town called Stuyvesant Town. Anybody ever heard of Stuyvesant Town? Okay, no, one person. Okay, it's still there. And when I grew up, they had air conditioners hanging. No, they didn't even have air conditioners. What am I talking about? And I was a bad kid, pretty much right off, long before I drank. And I just had trouble in school. I don't know what it was, but I was very introverted. Nobody ever believes that when I tell them, but it was true. I was just very to myself. My sister was pretty much the same way, and my mom was that same way. And my mom already drank pretty well at that point, and she, raised us the best she could, I guess. She went to advertising. She was an advertising coordinator or exec, or some low-level exec, and they would give her a lot of liquor because that was her accounts. So that's important later when I started helping myself to all the liquor in the house that she got for nothing. So I went to school, and I was very uncomfortable for whatever reason. I was smart enough, I thought, and got through stuff, and I was very good in sports. And then around 10 years old, somebody threw a basketball at me that hit me in the face, and I realized I couldn't see, so I got a pair of these, which was a problem because then I could see, and I looked at my hair one day, and I don't know about everybody else, I had this hair, like most of the kids I went to school with, which was Caucasian, lower middle class. It was in projects basically, so everybody there was Italian. They didn't mix it up much. Okay, so it was Italian Catholics and Irish Catholics. So everybody had like slicked back hair, and I had hair, but this piece of my hair just went right up, straight. It's just straight up in the air. It looked like a landing thing, like a plane could come in slowly and drop in there. And I don't care what I did. Now, my sister had a little bit of that, and she would buy all this junk at the store and put it all over her hair, and then scotch tape it to the side of her hair. And as funny as that seems, that worked. After about 3 years of that, she straightened her hair. By God, she figured it out. And but I never did figure out mine. So I just had this goofy looking hair, and I got my mother bought me the most horrifying glasses that is humanly possible to buy or wear. I just don't know where. She just must not have liked me. I don't know. They look like throw up after 30 days, that color, and they were put on with glass in them. I don't know where she found them. And so I wore that and had the funny hair. So I went to school, so I already felt kind of strange. And but I was sort of nerdy, I guess, and all that. But I was good in sports. But I just felt way out there for whatever reason. And so I do this, and I don't remember anything significant happening. I just all of a sudden found myself with a bad crowd. It was I just gravitated. There would be 1,000 people in a room. I could find the 3 lunatics to hang out with, and I found them, and we started hanging out in 6th, 7th grade. And we actually had a name, and we called ourselves the Destructos. And the reason why we called ourselves the Destructos is because we'd like to destroy things, in case that was difficult for you to figure out. So we broke into stuff, stole stuff, snuck on the subway trains. I used to walk on the tracks. I don't think you see that anymore. Well, I thought nothing. We'd sneak into the train and walk. If we got tired of waiting for the train, by God, we'd just walk right up the tracks. The third rail's right there. Would have turned us into a Toast Crisp. And I probably walked on top of that thing and go like, ha, but we didn't. We just didn't have any kind of sense at all. So we did all that kind of stuff, robbed department stores and threw stuff off roofs on top of newspaper vendors and anything and everything we could to be destructive and get a laugh out of that, of course, at your expense. And so I did that for a while, and somewhere in the midst of all that, at my house around Christmas, I had the very first drink I ever had, which was champagne. So I started off good, okay, right? A little glass, nice deal. And my mother had a friend there, and so it was, I guess, a little celebration at Christmas. We still had no father in the picture. And we did that, and I immediately kind of figured out that something was happening to me by drinking that stuff. And I kind of liked it, but I didn't do anything, and it was a whole year later. I'm thinking I'm 12, I don't know, really, that I had another glass, and then my sister had a glass, but I stole hers, so I was already stealing other people's liquor, and it made me even a little higher. And within 6 months, I was in that cabinet I told you about. My mother had all that free liquor, and I just went at it, I started to miss school, I started to do everything. I thought myself like a great hockey player, so my mother would go to work, and then somehow I just act like I was sick, so I wouldn't go to school. So I would drink her liquor, and then I would play hockey in the living room, which was hard to cover up because of all the puck marks, on the walls, because we use electrical tape when you play street hockey. So I did all that, and then this is true. I mean, I went in liquor cabinets. My mother, I wish she drank vodka, because that way she couldn't really tell unless by taste, but she didn't. She drank, they had rye. You heard of that stuff? Rye, and that's not too popular anymore, I guess, but they had rye and whiskey and all that. And I would drink that stuff and water it down, but I would change. Now, Jesus changed water into wine, and I changed rye into water because I kept adding back up to the level to the point that you could see through the bottle to the back of the cabinet, but she never said anything. So I just kept, and my whole MO for those early years was, if I could get away with it, I'd get away with twice the next time I would try. So I would steal money from my mother, which I'll tell you, frankly, I did. If I stole $5 and didn't hear anything about it, I'd get 10, and then maybe 20 next time, whatever. And then the sad part was later, in the real throes of alcoholism and drugs and all that, my mother would know, and I just couldn't care less. And that is one sad state of affairs. That's what I turned into in my 20s. So there's a lot of stuff in between all that. But so eventually, so these three guys that I ran around with, right? So this is kind of how we were. We would go do something bad, and one time the police caught us doing it. So I was the fastest one there, no doubt about it. I mean, I was like a bullet. And then I was home. The police car didn't even have prayer to catch me. I was home. And the problem was that I forgot they'd catch one of my buddies and beat him up until he told them where I lived. And then half hour later on the door, Miss Baker, we need to speak to you and your son. So, they found out it was me. Apparently the same thing must have happened because at school in 8th grade, and my grades were still good and all that, the fire marshal showed up one day downstairs at the principal's office, and I got called down there to it. And apparently I must be one of those guys got caught at something and told on me and said, he is the ringleader, or he's one of the ringleaders, and destroying, because we used to blow up milk machines and stuff with butane bombs, and we had all kind of clever ideas going on. And we thought that was funny, I guess. And set your door on fire with lighter fluid and then ring the bell when you would open it. It's a good look, right? So we just did all that kind of stuff, but apparently somebody told on me, and the fire department didn't really find it very funny. So I came into the room, and I said before at a meeting, and I'll say again, the guy that sat down had the biggest hat I have ever seen in my life on someone's head. Forget sombreros. This guy had a hat, it must have been on the job nearby, and water pouring down. I guess it was just like, to me, it was like, oh my God, it was like a swimming pool, the thing he was wearing on his head. And they proceeded to tell me what happened and what I did, and I was essentially kind of chucked out of the school. I was allowed to graduate, but I couldn't come to the procession. And I was arrested by the fire department. Now beat that. Usually people get up here and tell you the police, they got arrested by the police, but I'm different. So seriously, I had to go down there, and then my mother had to come deal with all that. Well, the short of all that was, I wound up with 6 months of family probation. We were thrown out of those projects I told you about. Chucked. You move now. So we had to move uptown. The rent there was very good. The rent where we went was double that, and I put all that on my mom. So I'm 12 years old, whatever, and I've blown it. I've just given my mother and everybody else enough evidence against me to come up with I was no good, and I really had no defense. So I just continued on my merry way. I got into a very good high school, and guess what? The kids were a lot smarter there. So now I was no longer super genius without trying. No, I was average, and because I hadn't really applied myself. So this is a school where the Kennedy's kids went there, all this stuff. I don't know what I was doing there. So I did that and tried to play soccer because I was too small for football and all that kind of stuff. I made it to 10th grade, and I was gone. And then I started hanging out in Central Park, and then the real fun began to start. I had all the drinking, and I had done some stuff, some pot, and I sniffed glue and all. I never made an airplane model that I remember, but I had lots of glue around. Oh boy. And I was very depressed when they said they had put something in it to like kill you or something if you tried to do that. I don't know what they did, but I didn't really want to find out. I seemed to outgrow whatever the word is, those things. But now I was into heavy drinking, and I was found 3 more people, just like the idiots I left downtown, and started going to high school dances and just, we don't have time to do all that. I mean, I threw up all over the principal's office one time at visiting women's school. I thought I was going to be expelled. It didn't happen. I don't know why. I just shut up and moved on. But I eventually left the school, and then I'm hanging out in Central Park. And, I was working a job making $3 an hour, and I got involved with like a hash deal with somebody. I made $750 in 2 minutes. And I became an accountant later, and you can see that I had the stuff to figure out that was much better than working for $3 an hour, at least in my estimation at the time. So I got into that pretty quick, and I couldn't stand going to these jobs. And they were always complaining about stuff like not coming on time. When they said your starting time's 8 o'clock, I really thought they meant sometime after 8. I really did. I just plop on in there. I went to North Carolina. The only time I ever went to North Carolina with some hippie weirdo friend of mine from England, and we flew down here because his girlfriend moved here, and I forgot I had a job, that same job. So I called them and said, I'm not there today. I mean, obviously, and they said, if you come back by tomorrow, you can still work here. And I was like, okay. So I do stuff like that all the time. It's totally irresponsible and not good at what I was filing papers, and I wasn't good at it. I didn't know the alphabet anymore, apparently. Not much. So it just went worse and worse, and to the point, and a couple important things, I guess, in there is, so I became a drug dealer and a drunk while I'm doing that, and I could never tell. I couldn't possibly tell you what was worse, but they were one kind of powerful combination together, I can tell you that. And then at kind of a highlight of all that, at 19 years old, all of a sudden a man walked in the house. My mother allowed a man to come in the house, and I was 19 years old, and I was I was a size 28 maybe waist. I mean, completely emaciated. My hair was like this long. I wore snakeskin boots. I had like a snakeskin shirt print that showed most of me. For some reason, you all wanted to see that. I don't know why. And I had, at some point, a Fu Manchu mustache. I just was strange looking. And she let this man in the door, and that man turned out to be my father. And I didn't know that was my father. I had no idea. So my mother allowed him to get back in her life, and that's an ongoing sad saga for my family, and as sad as me, as I was. And I even had some sad dealings with him later. So he showed up, and I really thought this. I said, well, my father's showed up back, so now I kind of felt like maybe I can cut back on all this behavior and the drinking and stuff, because my father's here, kind of rescue, save the day, which was a false idea that everyone in my family kept bestowing on my father, who was incapable of doing any of that. It's not fair to even think that he could do that, because he couldn't. He already shown that a couple times. So about a week later, the narcotics division somehow knew to come over to my house and arrest me. And long story, and I wound up down on Rikers Island, which is, first I wound up in the Tombs, which has now been closed. What a lovely place. If you missed that place, you're lucky. They threw 75 of us on the floor down there, and people were withdrawing from drugs on the floor, like dying, and prisoners who were just walking back. So it wasn't, shortly after that, they shut down the prison. Nobody wanted to hear about that. So I wound up in Rikers Island for about a week or two, and came back to court and got rearrested. Now, in the courtroom, my father and my mother are together, which is the first time I've ever seen them together, because I didn't even see him that day. When he showed up, he said, hi, I'm back, I'll be back later. But I never saw him because I was already arrested, because he had to go straighten some things out in South Carolina, wherever he lived. So they showed up at court, and when I got rearrested, the lawyer said, I quit. You can't pay me what's going to be necessary, and you can't get him out anyway. So I was dead because I had sold drugs to a cop, which is really, that's really not a good idea. If you're bored, don't do that. I managed to do that. Then later they tried to get me to be one of those people, and I was like, yeah, whatever, because I couldn't get out of jail. And one of those morons said, well, if you help us, they just thought I knew Al Capone and all these people, and I didn't know anybody. I knew Mickey Mouse kind of people, really. And but if they wanted to believe that was my ticket out, and I took it. So I got out of there. Before I did it, I went to see my probation officer. He said, it don't matter, I'm putting you back in jail for violating probation. So I was dead every direction that you can imagine. So they put me in a drug program for 22 months upstate New York, and I knew what it was to, shovel 4 feet of snow and, at 6 in the morning or whatever. You had to do everything they wanted to do, otherwise you just instantly go to jail. So I was willing as much as I could be. And I had a rough time there. I didn't know how to live or act or operate. And I'm with a bunch of Brooklyn homicide guys that also are getting out. And I don't feel like I'm like them. I'm different. I kind of failed to notice that I was in the same barracks that they were. They really distinguish you like I get a different size bed because I'm nicer than they are. It's all the same bunks, pretty much. So after about 20 months or so, this really happened, 1971. Those guys called me in the office and said, "You've worked hard and you've done a lot of good work, and we think you're ready. We're going to give you drinking privileges." And I don't know if you can hear me or not here, but anyway, I said, "Really, what's that mean?" He said, "Well, as long as you're responsible, we think it's okay. You can drink if you choose to. Obviously, you can't do any drugs because that's your problem." Oh, I sucked that up, man. I was around the corner in 15 minutes at a bar getting a Johnny Walker, black or red. I don't know if I sprung for the black. I don't know. But I drank that, and I remember saying, everything's going to be okay because I can still drink. I remember that. Like 5 seconds ago that I said that to myself. There's nobody there saying that to me. I'm saying that. I probably had one of those squirrels from the treatment program there with me. So I did that, and I eventually got out of there, and then I tried to work, and some people had mercy on my soul and gave me a job. And I met really nice people and great people, and all they did was talk about my potential, you know. They said, if you just clean up your act and do this, what you're paying now, you'll double that in a short period of time. You know what? I did. I did that. I did all of that. Then I had gotten a GED in high school. They sent you to while I was in this drug place. So I had that, and I got into a college, and I went to that college, and I graduated from that college. And I had good grades. I only cheated once or twice. There's the amends on that, huh? So I came out of there. The problem was that, I was trying to drink responsibly. I was told it was okay, and it wasn't working. And then Rockefeller, somewhere in all this, Rockefeller, governor of New York, declared that pot wasn't illegal anymore. It was just if you get caught, you'd get a parking ticket. Well, that was the end of that party, being off drugs. So I was on that right away. And here's another thing I will never forget that I said to myself, oh, good, if I start smoking pot, I'll drink less. You know what I did. Within a month, I was drinking twice as much with the stuff. I just, everything was cumulative with me. I just doubled down, whatever you want to call it, on whatever I was doing that I shouldn't have been doing. So I started doing that, and here we go again for another 10, 11 years of this stuff since I got out of that place until I hit AA in 31. And a lot of weird things happened to me, and I did the things you probably did. I moved. I was going to go to England, and then somebody said, dude, you have to have a passport to go to England. It's like, oh, now you tell me. I was talking to some girl. I'll just go there. I don't work that way. And whatever I did, I don't know what I was thinking. I was going to go with some guy that had a girlfriend. I didn't have any girlfriend. Yeah. I learned that when I came to AA, I got a little bit sober. I quickly analyzed that if you spent more than about 15 minutes with me, there was something really wrong with you. Yeah, seriously. So if you spent like any real time with me, it was really, you needed treatment immediately. And because I lived with somebody a while, I remember calling them and telling them I got sober and all that, and they started talking to me, and they're like, and it hit me. It was sad. It was frighteningly scary. I had no clue on this girlfriend who helped me. She got me out of trouble, gave me money, and I realized that she was totally insane. I had no clue because it was all about me all the time, and me and the DTs, and me and this, and me, and I didn't realize that. And it was just a weird experience to discover all that, getting sober. So this went on, and things just got worse and terrible. And one time, that's a strong memory. I tried to go back to graduate school and do none of that. They opened. I went to NYU for a while. I got in somehow, and I wasn't there like a little while. And they said they had started a happy hour at the school at 5 o'clock. It opened at 5 o'clock down there, and I was a night student, so that was really a bad idea. Because I took some exams like that after going to happy hour, and I would come up to turn my paper in, and then suddenly do a 180 and realize I hadn't answered, some questions, and I'm walking like Tom talked about from over there, and I was completely drunk, and I was completely smashed out of my mind in the graduate school in front of all these people that are trying to be serious. And I think I did actually good in that course. And Bill Wilson just totally said, I'm just, a drunk. Being a drunk is a good man's fault, blah, blah, blah. And that's cute for a while. That was cute for a while. In the last year that I was trying to go to graduate school, I showed up for an exam, and it wasn't funny anymore when I couldn't write. That wasn't funny. I picked a pen up, I knew the answers, and I couldn't write. My hand was paralyzed. So I made marks like, a person dying on a paper, and I just basically, I think I left. I don't know what I did. Of course, I flunked that. Or the guy gave me a D-. He probably just didn't want to see me anymore. But I remember that. Kept hitting those bottoms, I remember I had this crazy friend in Pennsylvania, and we would go skeet shooting. I don't know why that idiot thought it was a good idea to go skeet shooting with a hangover. Nothing could be more stupid. So we're out in the middle of a field, and he's firing a 20 gauge or whatever, and I'm dying. I said, can we just go get some drinks first before we do this? So he made me wait a couple hours. I was going to kill him. And we finally went to a bar, and then I experienced what I heard here, which is I had to have a drink before I had a drink. I had to have the bartender put it on the table so I could bend over and get that out of the glass, and then I could maybe get two hands around a glass to have a drink, and then maybe I could hold it with one hand. I drank like that. It's exactly how I drank. But when I came to AA in 1983, I told you all I was too young. I didn't know what I was doing here, and you were a bunch, and you guys were talking about drinking, a quart of liquor a day. And I didn't, for a long time I tried to measure myself. Like, I never drank a quart of liquor a day. Oh, no, I drank more. Because I'd go to those after-hour clubs that didn't open at midnight. I was already drunk all day. And I'd go to them and give them $20, and they would let me drink all night. And I would wind up in some very strange situations. I don't know where, sometimes. Not worth remembering. Not worth remembering. Thank God for blackouts sometimes. So, and I was living with a woman on and off, and she would come home with different clothes on. I always wondered how that happened. I'm still trying to figure that out. What was going on? She was literally crazier than me. Yep. Yeah. I had my same clothes on. That was the only good news I had that day, believe me. So, I went on, and then I had this one incident, and I was out drinking, and all of a sudden I had what the Father Martin used to call the undeniable signs of alcoholism. I had, the inner tremors. I had this, like, what do you call it? A breakdown right on the street. I just was shaken to death, and I wasn't shaken at all. I was coming apart. And I got in a cab somehow, and I got up, and I drank like 4 beers real quick, and it calmed down. And it scared me enough to go to the doctor, who gave me Valium, which I sold to buy more liquor, on and on and on, with all this kind of stuff. And I kind of had enough in New York, and they had enough of me, so I moved to Maine with my good friend and his stolen car, and we fished and drank wine. Like I heard a person say in AA once that never seen a grape. I don't know where we found this. There was a store on the corner. We bought wine based on the weird name it had. Like Honky Tonk Screw or something. I don't know. It was nasty stuff, but it wasn't bad. With free fish from the lake, it wasn't bad, So we ate that and ate potatoes. So that's how I lived. I got a phone call from a good friend of mine that was from New Jersey, and he worked in Dunn, North Carolina, which is not too far from here, down 24, 27. And he actually sent somebody a letter and said, I'm looking for me. And he said, if you see him, tell him to call me. So I called him. He said, I have a job for 6 months if you're free. Am I free? I haven't worked forever. And so I got on a Trailways bus with my clothes and a bag. I had shoes that didn't fit me and some empty beer cans, and I landed in Dunn, North Carolina, with a checking account from Maine that may have had some money in it. It wasn't real clear. And I started working at a job, which was tricky, and things didn't go well there right off. And those people took me in, and they went away on vacation, asked me to walk their dog, watch their dog. I almost killed their dog. because I started doing all my usual routines. So when they came back, the wife put me in a detox. She volunteered me to detox. So, she threw me out and put me in a motel. It's a little place called the White Swan Motel. You know the White Swan Motel on 301? I always figured that's a feeder place for the detox center, because that's where they got so many of it's where they get their census. So they kind of build up 100% occupancy down there. I called the owner one time. I was so drunk. I called the owner and I said, the air conditioner's broken. And he came all the way over to the room, a little cabin, cheap. And they came in. He went up to the thing where it says on, and he went. I remember that. I was standing there looking at him. I was like, thank you. And he just left. And I knew I was ready to leave that hotel premises. And so I wound up in the detox there, and I met my first sponsor there right away. And he told me about a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, and I stayed there 3 days, and I didn't want to hear that. And I had pot in my pocket that they found in the detox, which was pretty stupid. And my thing about AA, I had two things about AA. The first one was I asked my dad about AA up in Maine years ago, and he said, well, he knew a friend that was in AA, but he drank again, so obviously AA doesn't work. That's all I knew about AA. I didn't know where it was. I didn't know anything about it. Didn't want to know. The next thing I found out about AA was in that detox center, because on the way out, there was a fountain with water going, and there was people apparently at an AA meeting, and they were all sitting around the water holding hands. And I saw that. I was like, I ain't going to no meetings. Holding hands. I don't know what they're doing out there, but I couldn't hear them. I was like, I'm not going to those meetings. So I went off on my merry way, and this first sponsor, and people said, well, you should try to go to some meetings, just try, do it for me, whatever. So I went to some, and I didn't do anything. I was trying to pick up girls and try to find out who was still smoking pot and going to meetings so I could hang out with them and all that. And I wasn't drinking, though, but I was still doing that and sniffing cocaine, and that program didn't work out. And I remember I was coming unglued off of cocaine one time, and I kept telling myself, whatever you do, don't drink, man. You're an alcoholic. So I was walking down the street going, man, whatever you do, don't drink. Pull in front of this truck and kill yourself, but don't drink. So I call a couple of people. There was a doctor down there. I call him, and then I wanted to ask for help and say, I think I'm going to drink again. And instead, I'd start talking about the football game. He didn't read my mind. It pissed me off that he didn't read my mind. And off we went. So I did wind up drinking again. I took a trip to Philadelphia. That was a disaster. I came back, and I wound up drinking again. I now lived out in Coates, North Carolina. Also an interesting place to drink at. No one out there. I had a set of drums. I played 3 in the morning. It's okay. The neighbors and whatever. So I called that first sponsor of mine, and he rounded up some troops, and they came and got me out of there before something bad happened. And they sent me up to Greensboro to that place. And a lot of things happened there. I'll tell you the most important thing. I've never met anybody that said this happened to them. So I was there 28 days or whatever, and there was a woman, I forget her name, I can see her, kind of, and I went to those counseling groups and all the groups they have. I never went to an AA meeting. Every time they're looking to try to take people to AA meeting, I go hide, and they never found me. And I was there you're supposed to go like right away. I was there 3 weeks before my counselor said, have you been to a meeting yet? I was like, no. I just ducked and dodged everywhere. But anyway, and I did finally go over to Greensboro to a meeting, which was very helpful. But the thing that happened there that was amazing was I went to this little session, and I guess I spoke and said whatever I said, and other people spoke. And it was a counselor there, and she was an AA member as far as I know, I think. And we walked out, and she came up to me and put her arm around me, and she said these words. She said, you're never going to drink again. I know what she said. She didn't say you don't have to drink again. She didn't say you don't have to be alone again. All the things you hear. She didn't say that. She said you are not going to drink again. She seemed like she knew. Now, maybe she says that to everyone there, I don't know. But she said it to me. So I haven't made a liar out of her yet. I just carry that. It was so weird for her to say that to me. Like, I knew her as much as you know, a counselor in one of those joints. And she said that. She just seemed like she zeroed in on something about me. I was ready or willing or something. So that was an amazing thing that happened there. So, I came out and I actually got a sponsor, Ed. I asked him to be my part-time sponsor or my temporary sponsor, like we do. And he beat me up pretty good. And then he took a job in Greensboro. So I got his sponsor, started to do some more of those steps with him, the 6 and the 7, 8 and the 9. I had that all wrong. I had an 8th step list that was pretty considerable. I said I didn't have my mother on it. Remember I told you about my mom? She wasn't on the list. She bought a new couch from Bloomingdale's, and I watched the fire department come and tear it into little pieces of cotton because my friend and I dropped a cigarette in it when we were stoned. And they showed up, and they don't clean up when they're done. Did you know about that? They pull every little thing, because they're upstairs on the 12th floor of an apartment building, so everything has to be out, for sure. So my mother's couch, which was looked one way, now it looked this different way in all its little pieces. And it was stuff like, I did that all the time to her life. When the police came that time I told you about, they said they were going to arrest my mother because she must have known what I was doing there. And she was in on it. I was like, no. That's the only thing I didn't lie about. I said, no, she's not. But I didn't have her on my amends list. So I got some sponsorship help on that stuff because I had that all backwards. So I just went on, and we're kind of running out of time, and I've just had 31 years of amazing life. I mean, I've learned so many things I don't even know where to start. I got to go back to school. I got this good job after a couple of years. Tom knows I worked there about 23 years, and they treated me pretty good there. And they tried to get me to go back to school. Well, I had it with school. I owed the school. You guys told me I had to pay back the money I stole from $11,000 from the school. I was like, what? I got away with that one. I'm in a different state. They forgot about it. I'm like, what kind of outfit is this? It's just stupid. So I had to call them and start paying it back, all that stuff. So I did that. And so I had a Catholic nun. Now that's fun because we have a long history there too. This Catholic nun was my boss, and she said, we want you to go back to school because you're good at this job you got, but you don't know anything about public health care, so we want you to go to Chapel Hill and do all that. And I kind of, at first year, I just said, no, I don't really want to go. I just blew her off. Then one day, and this is a true alcoholic, then about a year later, she sat down and had another one of those face-to-face talks with me, and she said, we'd really like to go to school. I said, well, like I said, I don't know really the reason why I should go. She said, well, we'll pay for it. I said, I'll sign up tomorrow. And I did. So I went and did that. That's true alcoholic. So it's amazing things happen. I got to do it. I was sure I'd fail every course, and of course I didn't even come close to failing any course in that thing. And a lot of things happened, and I won some awards even, which from the school. The one person that seemed to me hated me more in that whole school was an associate dean, and I got an award. I got an Alumni of the Year, like in the 90s. And so I went up to the school, and I saw this woman, and her and I were always oil and water, because she tried to keep me out of her class, because that was the last class I had. She was from Brooklyn. It must be something about Brooklyn and Manhattan. I don't know. But so she was saying, she says, congratulations. And, she's the one, and I said, yeah, it's amazing. I don't understand how I got this award. Who would have sponsored this or whatever? She said, I did. I hated that woman. I loved her then, but I hated her before. You know what she did? Before I started the course, I never met her. She called me at work. She said, are you Michael Baker? I said, yeah. She goes, my name is Professor something, and I have something I need to tell you. And I said, what's that? She said, I heard about you. You got a big mouth and you think you know everything, and if you come in my damn class, you better keep your mouth shut because I'll throw you out. You won't get, in fact, if you don't tell me you're going to shut up, I'm not going to let you in the class. And she had the authority to keep me out of the class, because it was a day class, and I was like a, executive master student. And I said, okay, I'll do, I never met her. And she's just killing me here. And I was like, okay, I'll try. And I got along fine in the class, but I never knew that reached a new level where somehow something had happened between us, that she was the one that made that possible. That's mind-boggling. That happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. When you're not looking, I'm always looking over here, and something wonderful is right there coming my way. Just hang in there. Don't yell at people. Don't mess up your relationships with people. Even though you think you're justified, don't bother. I was justified to mess with her, and look what happened. So, I went on and on. I'll tell you something tricky, because it's not a bed of roses, doing this thing and living, and all these old guys, I tell you that. Because I wound up I made amends to my dad. I was like 9 years sober. And so he came back into my life, and we had some good times for like 10 years. And then something happened in my family that came to my attention that was extremely disturbing, that had to do with him. And I didn't want, it was just like, how do you even wrap your head around that? It was unimaginable that this had happened and he was involved. And it was a long time ago. And I called this guy, and I called him. I said, did you do this? And he didn't answer, so I knew the answer. He didn't answer me. I knew he had done it. So, I talked to people, and eventually I even talked to people that don't talk to psychiatrists, but I knew one in AA who I went to meetings with over on Oberlin Road, and he was a good old guy, and he's passed away now. That guy in a wheelchair I'm talking about. And he gave some sage advice about the whole thing. He said, don't worry about your mother. She probably knows in a general way anyway about some of the stuff he was doing, but doesn't want to deal with it. So I just wrote him a letter and said, you and we're not an item anymore on any level, and I haven't talked to him since. That's like 8-9 years ago. So I don't know where he is, and I don't say I don't care. I'm not angry or resentful. I just wouldn't know what else to do about it. I don't want to hang out with him. How would I do that? And that was a real stumper. Here I was floating around in AA. Everything seemed like it was going pretty good, and all of a sudden, wham! This was, and I used to think, kind of in the back of my mind, I don't know about you, but I keep these reservations in the back of my mind, like my family was, maybe they didn't have any money where I grew up, but they used to be something. Because they all grew up in mansions in Long Island and had a seat on the stock exchange, and all that's true. They did have that. But when I heard this, I realized that maybe we had to do some work in my family just to reach up to everyone else. I had that backwards. So you spend a lot of time trying to be better than, and boy, what a waste of time that is. And that thing whacked me right into reality. And I'm just glad to be another bozo on the bus. My sponsor, Jim, in Durham, used to say that all the time. He said, I'm just another bozo on the bus. I'm a run-of-the-mill classic alcoholic. That's all I am. And I'm so damn glad to be here with you tonight. I just can't stand it. Thanks you.